The sun sank low behind the distant hills of Dustfall Ridge, setting the open sky ablaze with hues of orange and amber, the heat of the day settling into a creeping desert chill. Rancher Elias Grant sat alone on his front porch, a half-empty mug of coffee in his weathered hands, eyes scanning the land he'd worked since he was 16. Dust carried memories here. Every fence post and hoofprint told stories of storms, cattle drives, and men who didn't make it home. He had seen peace, war, drought, and blood, but nothing prepared him for the shadow that stumbled onto his land, just past sundown. At first, Elias thought it was a coyote limping awkwardly through the dust trail that led up from the valley. But as it neared, it became clear. It was a woman. A figure draped in torn linen, staggering under the weight of something slung over her back. A burlap sack, tied tightly and stained dark in places. Her clothes were covered in filth, her face half covered by a makeshift scarf, and her feet bare, bruised and cut from the gravel trail. Elias stood slowly, instincts sharp. Out here, you didn't get visitors, especially not ones looking like ghosts. The woman collapsed a few feet from his porch steps, dropping to her knees with the kind of weariness that didn't just come from walking, but from running for her life. Elias stepped down cautiously, a hand hovering near the revolver on his belt, more out of habit than fear. The woman raised her head slowly. Her eyes, though swollen and half shut, held a plea, raw and desperate. "Please," she rasped, voice nearly lost to the wind. "Take them off." He stepped closer. "What?" She reached for the sack she carried, her hands trembling as she tried to untie the thick knot holding it shut. "Please, take them off. I couldn't, not with them watching." The knot slipped, and the sack flopped forward. Elias blinked. What could possibly be inside? But before he could move, the woman passed out, right there, face down in the dirt, her body going limp. Elias rushed to her, feeling for a pulse. Still, alive, barely. He carried her inside, placing her gently on the old couch in the front room. The sack lay beside her, unmoving. He debated. Curiosity battled caution. But the sack didn't move. No sound, no smell. Just silence. Hours passed. He patched her wounds, gave her water, and waited. When she finally stirred, she looked at him, with clouded eyes, and said only one word. "Run." The next morning, the sheriff came by. Someone had reported screams near the hills. "You see anything strange, Elias?" the sheriff asked, spitting tobacco near Elias's boot. Elias hesitated. "Just a busted fence. Coyotes, probably." The sheriff nodded, but didn't look convinced. "Keep your rifle loaded. Heard some trouble near the border. Folks going missing." That night, Elias finally untied the sack. Slowly, carefully, and what he saw inside made his breath stop cold. It wasn't gold. It wasn't weapons. It was shoes, tiny, worn-out children's shoes, 5 pairs of them soaked in something dark, something dried and old. Beside them, a tattered photograph, 6 children smiling under a willow tree. A note was scrawled on the back. "They said we couldn't run, but we did. Find them, Elias. Please." He sat there, stunned. He didn't know the woman's name. He didn't know what hell she had run from, but now he was holding a piece of it in his hands. And someone or something would be coming to take it back. The next morning, the barn door was wide open, and his horse was gone. The rising sun burned through the morning haze, casting long shadows across the dry soil of Elias Grant's ranch. But something was wrong. There was no sound, no neighing, no birds, just an eerie, suffocating silence that gripped the land like a clenched fist. When Elias stepped out to the barn, dread sank in like cold steel through flesh. The door, which he always bolted shut at night, hung open on a broken hinge. His mare, Dusty, a loyal creature he'd raised from a foal, was gone. Only hoof prints remained, too many, crossing paths, circling, and then heading west into the Badlands. The prints weren't just Dusty's, there were at least 4 others, riders. Back in the house, the woman still slept, though uneasily, mumbling incoherent words in her fevered dreams. Elias didn't know her name. He didn't know what nightmare she had dragged onto his land. But now it was his, too. And it was awake. He returned to the sack. The shoes inside were soaked with dried blood. Too much to be from a simple fall or scrape. The photo haunted him. 6 children, 5 pairs of shoes. Where was the 6th? Were they hers? Or had she taken them from someone else? Suddenly, she woke with a gasp, sitting upright, eyes wild. "Did you open it?" she croaked. "I did," Elias replied calmly. "Now tell me what this is." She blinked, mouth quivering. Then her shoulders slumped. "They were taken, all 6 of them, my children, and others. I escaped. They let me go, made me watch, made me carry their memories. That sack, it's all that's left." Elias's voice was steady but sharp. "Who took them?" "They wear the law on their chests, Elias," she said, almost spitting the name like she'd known him all her life. "But they ain't no law. Out past Coyote Creek, that old mining station, they turned it into something evil. Trafficking, punishment, branding, like cattle, children, women. Some they bury, some they keep." Elias felt the bile rise in his throat. He'd heard whispers of such things in the deeper canyons, out where sheriffs stopped riding and screams went unanswered. But this was close, too close. That night, she told him everything. Her name was Marin. She had once been the school teacher in a river town called Elkhorn, far past the hills. The town had been wiped out. Officially, bandits. In truth, a private militia cloaked as lawmen, acting under the command of a man named Silas Briggs, a former Confederate enforcer turned land baron. He had turned the forgotten valleys of the West into his own kingdom, stealing children, women, and land, protected by silence and fear. Myron had been kept alive, not out of mercy, but cruelty. Silas called her the messenger. He said, if anyone ever came looking, she'd be the warning. The world needed to see what happened to those who defied his claim. She had watched them take her children, heard the screaming. And then one night, she broke through the chains, through the guards, into the wild with nothing but blood-soaked shoes and a memory heavy enough to kill a man. Elias didn't sleep that night. He loaded his rifle, saddled the backup mule, and when dawn broke, he told Marin to stay hidden. She refused. "They'll kill you," he said. She stared back, hollow yet fiery. "They already killed me, Elias. I want what's left of them to see my face when they burn." So they rode. It took 2 days to reach the mining camp. Now, a twisted fortress of wood, barbed wire, and smoke. Elias watched from a ridge with his spyglass. There were at least 10 guards, each heavily armed, with brands on their necks. In the center stood the main structure, once a storage house, now turned into a crude jail. Children's drawings were nailed to one wall, some barely legible, others scratched out with knives. Elias didn't wait for nightfall. He moved like a ghost through the underbrush, rifle over shoulder, knife at the ready. One by one, he picked the guards off from the shadows. By the time the camp noticed, it was already too late. Marin had snuck in through the waste chute and began unchaining the cells. What followed was not a fight. It was fury unleashed. Elias confronted Silas Briggs himself near the water trough. The man was older now, but still dangerous. Tall, gaunt with eyes as dead as the desert. He wore a long coat and a revolver with an ivory grip. His first words were not fear, but smug amusement. "Well now, that old ranch dog comes barking at my gates. What did she promise you? Redemption? A hero's grave?" Elias didn't answer. He raised his rifle. Silas grinned. "Ain't no justice out here, Elias, just ownership." The shot rang out. Silas fell. It was over in a moment. Marin stood nearby, her face streaked with tears and dust. She walked slowly to Silas's body, pulled out the tattered photograph Elias had shown her, the one with the 6 children, and placed it gently on his chest. Then she spat on the dirt beside his head. They gathered the surviving children, 8 in total, none older than 10. Some were from towns Elias had never heard of, none remembered their full names. But they held on to each other as if they were one soul split into 8 bodies. Elias and Marin brought them back. Word spread. People who had lost hope came searching. Mothers, fathers, old neighbors. The ranch became a place of healing, of truth. One day, months later, a little boy walked up to Marin with a pair of shoes in his hand. They were small, worn, but dry. "I think these were my sisters," he said softly. Marin took them, knelt down, and hugged him. She never found all 6, but she made sure no more were lost. And as for Elias, he kept the sack, now empty, hanging above his fireplace as a symbol. A reminder that silence is the enemy of justice. The West didn't change overnight, but it started that day. If this story moved you, inspired you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the Gift of Kindness for more powerful stories like this. We're not just about engines and speed, we're about heart, grit, and the stories that deserve to be told. We'll see you in the next one.